Mr. Speaker, what is the Republican record? President Reagan comes into office, and the first thing that he does is massive tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, and explodes the deficit. President George W. Bush comes into office, 2001, 2003, massive tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, 2 failed wars, a deep recession, explodes the deficit. President Trump comes into office. First thing he does in 2017, massive tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. The GOP tax scam. 83% of the benefits going to the wealthiest 1% in America, explodes the deficits. How dare you lecture America about fiscal responsibility when the record shows that Democrats are the party of job creation and reducing deficits, and Republicans are the party of tax cuts for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, and exploding the deficit. So we're not going to stand here and allow you to lecture us about fiscal responsibility. What this is an effort to try to extract deep, painful cuts on everyday Americans. This reckless Republican effort to lead us down the road of a dangerous default will hurt working families, hurt the middle class, hurt all those Americans who aspire to be part of the middle class, hurt young people, hurt seniors, hurt veterans, hurt the poor, the sick, and the afflicted, hurt people in urban America, in rural America, in exurban America, in small-town America, in Appalachia, in the heartland of America, hurt the least, the lost, and the left behind. The extreme MAGA Republican Default on America Act will hurt everyday Americans. Why? Because you want to jam your reckless, extreme ideology down the throats of the American people.
This is Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries putting on full display the difference between Republican branding and objective reality. And that is that while Republicans love to claim that they're the party of jobs and the economy, in reality, they have underperformed every Democratic administration on those metrics for more than 3 decades. Now, this is all coming to a head as Republicans have now passed their budget out of the House. And in it, they're looking now to exact deep concessions from the Democrats in exchange for the gift of not tanking the global economy by failing to lift the debt ceiling. I want to be clear, Republicans are using our own economy, the stock market, and the global economy as a bargaining chip because something fiscal responsibility. Now, McCarthy and House Republicans have revealed what those concessions would be in their budget, which blocks Biden's plan to grant student loan forgiveness, repeals green energy tax credits, effectively kills the entire Inflation Reduction Act, undoes funding for the IRS intended to catch ultra-wealthy tax cheats, and would expedite renewals of oil drilling projects while rescinding COVID funds. This budget is a Republican fever dream, which is to say, there is not a snowball's chance in hell of passing the Senate or getting signed into law by Biden. But still, McCarthy passed it, despite the fact that we are months, if not weeks away from defaulting on our debt. Why? Because he's owned by the extremists in his conference, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and he knows that if he doesn't do their bidding, his job could be on the line. Remember, it just takes one single Republican lawmaker to call for a vote for a new speaker. And even though we are barreling full steam ahead toward default, Kevin McCarthy is content to screw around and pander to the extremists in the House because he's looking out for his own job, which I gotta say is about as surprising as the sun rising in the morning. But let's talk for a moment about why this budget is especially hypocritical from Republicans. They're trying to pass themselves off as fiscal conservatives, and yet the only policy they actually espouse is tax cuts for the rich, which decidedly do not result in some boon for the economy. They result in boons for the rich. I know, shocking. But they're smart in the sense that they just call themselves fiscally conservative, knowing full well that for most people, that branding is enough. It'll stick. All the while, in reality, think about what happened the last time that Republicans took power. They added $7.8 trillion to the debt. And for what? A tax cut that overwhelmingly favored millionaires and billionaires. And now that they control the House, their first action was to vote to add $114 billion to the deficit to make it easier for rich people to cheat on their taxes. By contrast, Biden lowered the deficit by the largest amount in history last year, and the budget that he proposed this year would continue that trend. And yet, we're supposed to believe that it's the Republicans who have some monopoly on fiscal responsibility. Got it. On that same note, they also claim to be the party of jobs. Now, not only did Trump lose the most jobs of any president in recorded American history, but as I mentioned before, in my entire lifetime, there has not been a single Republican president that created more jobs than a Democratic president. Republicans still parade themselves around as if they've somehow got this monopoly on job creation, when not only do they not have a monopoly, they don't have any winning stats to point to against Democrats. In fact, in the last 3 decades, here's what their records look like. George H.W. Bush leaves office with a 7.3% unemployment rate. Clinton leaves office with a 4.2% unemployment rate. Then George W. Bush leaves office with a 7.8% unemployment rate, and Obama leaves office with a 4.7% unemployment rate. Starting to notice a trend here? Trump leaves office with a 6.3% unemployment rate, and Biden brings it back down to 3.5%. In other words, Democrats are constantly cleaning up Republican messes, and since I have been alive, that has literally always been the case. In fact, let's point to some more stats. In just over 2 years in office, Biden's overseeing the creation of 12.6 million jobs. Not only the most jobs ever added in the first 2 years of a presidential term, but more jobs than have ever been added even in a 4-year presidential term. Manufacturing jobs are up 800,000, thanks in large part to the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, which led to an explosion in jobs in renewables and fiber and chips. The unemployment rate is down to 3.5%, the lowest it's been in about 50 years, down 45% since Biden took office. Black and Hispanic unemployment is also near record lows. We've had the strongest 2 years of small business applications on record, with 10.5 million new businesses created. Real wages are higher than they were even 7 months ago, with wages up 4.4% in the past year. Again, the difference in when you invest in the economy from the bottom up versus the top down could not be more apparent. If you needed any more proof that Republicans' 40-year failed experiment of trickle-down economics doesn't work, this is it. The administration invested in jobs for regular people, policies for regular people, gave bailout funds to regular people who needed them, expanded the child tax credit for regular people, and the result is that the U.S. had the fastest recovery from COVID of any G7 country. I know you'll be shocked to hear that it's possible to bail people out who aren't millionaires and billionaires, but apparently it is, and it turns out that that strategy works a lot better. The simple fact is that Republicans are not here to help regular people, they are here to help the donor class. But in order to get permission to do that, they needed to brand themselves as fiscal conservatives. But this was never about fiscal conservatism, it was always about creating a permission structure to continue heaping money onto the rich. And to their credit, that strategy worked for years, if not decades. But there comes a point when the numbers don't lie, and those numbers show pretty clearly that the GOP's strategy has never borne out the way that they claim. The only difference is that now, finally, people are paying attention. The simple fact is that this budget is not for you, it is for their donors. It's for the ultra-rich. That's all. It benefits no one to rescind funding for the IRS when the only thing that increased funding is used for is A, increasing audits on millionaires and billionaires, and B, answering calls and sending you refunds back on time. Do not let them lie to you, because that's exactly what they bank on doing. But while Republicans might lie, the numbers very clearly don't. Before you go, I need your help. I'm right on the cusp of hitting 2 million subscribers, so please help me grow this channel so the progressive media ecosystem grows by hitting the subscribe button right here on the screen. I also started a Spanish channel so we can finally start regaining some of that lost ground among Spanish speakers, so if you want to help support those efforts, you can hit that subscribe button. And finally, if you listen to podcasts and you want to support mine, you'll find a link to that on the screen as well. Thanks so much for watching.